In today's conversation with my cousin Kalei Luna, also the spa director of Mii Amo at Enchantment Resort, we're going to be talking about bridging the gap between business leadership and spiritual healing, because that's really what we're doing here in the spa industry and the wellness industry, and talking about the inner work that we feel needs to happen within ourselves in order to hold that space for the business side and the healing side. So we hope you enjoy this very intimate spiritual conversation about being in the spa industry.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Optimize Your Naʻau Podcast. My name is David, and this is Dara.
Aloha.
And today's special guest, we have Kalei Luna.
Yeah. Kalei is my cousin, and she is also the spa director at Mii Amo at Enchantment, which is a beautiful property in Boynton Canyon in Sedona. You folks have to go.
One of our favorite places.
One of our favorite places.
Yep.
And so today we're going to talk about the journey, right? Because I don't think we are used to having these conversations in intimate settings when we're together, talking about the journey, not knowing what the destination is going to look like, how we got there, things that we had to change within us and even sometimes around us, right? Our environment to get to where we wanted. So, Kalei, I know you did not, like we were talking, when you first started at Mii Amo or at Enchantment, right? Could you have even wrapped your head around being the spa director one day?
I think it was, so my life prior had always been artistic, creative, in an area where I was creating and co-creating with other people in a different environment. And I lived in New York, and the city was not feeding my soul any longer. It's filled with creative people. It's filled with all of this energy to build things with others, but it just wasn't feeding myself. And I knew that I needed a change and a shift, and that shift really needed to be within the environment that I was around. And so that was kind of the main direction. Just get out of here, and who knows where it will take me.
Yeah.
And I fell into a hospitality job that I thought was probably going to be a few months in the summer, a summer job, and move on and find other things in advertising or creative work. And things just started opening as far as opportunities in hospitality in the direction of spa and wellness. And I just kept going in that direction. And it's funny because the community I feel with wellness and practitioners are very similar to creatives. They're knowledge seekers. They're always curious. They're always interested to, play and explore and all of that. And I feel very similar with people who are estheticians, people who are massage therapists, people who are mindfulness practitioners. All of them people are always seeking those kinds of things. So it's a similar community. So I feel like that's why I've made a place in it. Differences, but I feel like that's what I need to be around.
Yeah.
That kind of energy.
That's so interesting. I mean, to go from New York. So just so everybody knows, you were going to school in New York for art.
For advertising.
For advertising.
Advertisations.
Okay. I mean, we've been to New York so many times, and we've been to Sedona, right? Two totally different things. But it seemed, I mean, if I hear you correctly, it's like the environment that you thrive in is more with that Sedona, which is really, it's very spiritual, right? It's got vortexes, it's healing energy, and then the connections that I feel like you were drawn to were more like that.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, in the hospitality industry, right? I mean, you and I have both been in the spa industry. And I feel like it's very different when you're on the inside of it, right? It's not very elegant.
No.
not very graceful, very messy.
I've heard someone describe it like a swan. A swan looks very calm on the surface of the water, and their feet
And the bottom.
Yes.
below, just trying to keep that
Yeah.
moving forward, is very chaotic.
Oh, that's a good description.
Yeah.
But I feel like us as, I'm just going to say it, healers, right? Because I do include you in that category as well.
Yeah.
That, it's not something that everybody is capable of.
You have to hold a lot.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You hold a
Yeah.
lot.
Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then physically.
Yeah.
Right? Because then all of those things start to affect our physical, which is why, we got into the biohacking part as well. Right? Because when we're dealing with, naturally when they come to a spa, it's like it's their relaxation. And for us, it's doing everything we can to make them feel relaxed.
Support that.
Right.
Yeah.
To support it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hold the space.
Yeah. And so for us to do it day in and day out, like it takes a lot. It takes a lot of inner work. And I feel like that's the part that is the most important. Right? If we're choosing to be facilitators, to hold space, it has to start with us. And that's why that's why, you're talking about environment. And, here we spend so much time creating this environment where people can come in here and literally feel like they can let their shit go.
Yeah.
And we have to be strong enough to allow that.
Yeah.
Yeah, choosing to hold space for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that. Even just being able to make sure that we keep up with our own energies.
Yeah.
And maintain ourselves to make sure that we can have the capacity to provide space for others. So that's one of the most important parts.
Well, so on that, like, what drew you in, or what kept you to stay in the spa industry, in the hospitality industry, where you are now spa director?
I feel like it's the people. It's what we're doing. I think the community of wellness people, to me, in my experience over my career, happens to be the most open industry I've ever seen. In other businesses, you kind of keep secrets, like trade secrets, and you keep things behind the scenes as to what is building on your success, and you're not necessarily really open in sharing that. And in wellness, I feel like we're constantly asking and seeking of those around us how they're doing it. What's working for you? What did you do at this point in your business? What happened at this milestone? I mean, not to go back years to COVID, but we're a very intimate setting in our practice. And that was a challenging experience, like, how are we going to continue to be intimate with those that we're making these connections with through this time? And even through that, we're having all of these conversations with each other, trying to figure out how are we going to navigate this, because it's a very strange situation for our industry. How are we going to continue to build on, like, our touch and those ways in which we spread our energy and our light? So I feel like that's what continues to make me want to be part of that community, is that there is this openness. It is a large community. It is one that we can lean on when we need to. And we're, we, not to say we have each other's backs through things, we are dealing with things together. Like we're trying to find a path. We're trying to find some answers. We're trying to find, just little aspects on ways that we can help each other and explore together, and just be a little bit more open and inviting to the fact that there's a lot of challenges in life.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
And you have to go deeper than the surface with your community and with those around you to be able to deal and get through it. And I feel like we do that a lot in this industry, where having that insight has helped me personally. I feel like it's probably helped the two of you personally.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're the people that we are today because of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Or what we're involved in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. Like, we started in our line of work as, trying to find solutions for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And for you, you were trying to find a different solution, and the solution actually found you.
Yeah.
Right. And helped you along the way. You, Mii Amo is such a unique place in its offerings. Like, we've never been, to a spa where we can get our aura read and coached through that. They have these amazing, beautiful offerings, where one is called an aura soma, right? And then I had a cranial sacral massage, which was so intuitive. My therapist was such a gifted empath, really, and then you had a similar experience.
Yeah. What I appreciate is just the variety, of healing, type of practices that they have there. Because even if it's somebody that's just maybe not even comfortable yet in that space, they're curious about it, right? It starts with, just a simple, I don't know if you want to say simple massage, but, it may start off that way, and then it ends up starting to evolve into something where they feel a lot more comfortable with opening up, and finding out and digging deep, know.
Yeah.
And the real healing actually starts from there.
Well, and that could be in a massage. It could be
absolutely,
some of those releases and things that happen. It doesn't matter what it is, but that's why I like having such an extensive menu. I mean, we have about 88 services on our treatment menu, and it's because people are able to go as deep as they want, or explore new things, and do things that they don't normally have at their day spa or other opportunities that they have in wellness near them.
Yeah.
And everyone is different.
Yeah.
And if you come back year over year, you're going to be different back.
Yeah.
What made sense for you at that point may not make sense for you next year.
Yeah.
And you de-stress in a different way than I do. You want to explore different things than I want to explore. You want to tap into the knowledge of different things than I want to. So that's why it's nice to be able to co-create that experience for our guests in a way that we have all of these opportunities to take that. And like I was saying, the practitioners being intuitive, I mean, you may have come in for one specific thing, and we realized in our time together, let's actually take it in a different way.
Yeah.
Let's do Reiki. Let's do something else that's not a high touch service, or let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And we can do that, because we have people who have 20, 30 plus years experience, and those things have directed them in so many ways. Somatic healing, like coaching, so many opportunities that you have to hold that space for people. And so, those experiences that like you're mentioning, they're so vast.
Yeah, and can evolve. Right. And I love how Mii Amo does it with just layering. So yes, it's the spiritual experiences and the emotional part, but then also with the food.
I was just going to say that. That support. That kind of support is really, really hard to find in the industry. I mean, just in the hospitality industry in general, right? Like, the healing starts more than just the spiritual part too. You need to feed it, literally feed it. Right? Yeah.
And we're firm believers in that, right? Like, we are limited to this physical body that, is affected by all of that, by the emotional, the spiritual, and all of those things that we go through can affect the physical. And if your physical it does not have enough energy and is not able to support it, then the work is hard. And we've all experienced that. I want to pivot a little bit to leadership, right? Because you being the spa director, so you having to be the leader for all of these technicians who are supporting, thousands of your clients. How do you, or what did you have to evolve in order to step into that type of leadership role? Because that's very different from business, right? So you have to do both business as well as support your technicians spiritually, mentally, all those things.
I think that part was probably easier for me than the business aspect. I think the business aspect and understanding those dynamics of, you know, the decisions that can and can't be made, or how you do need to shift into another decision because maybe the money's not there or the opportunity's not there, those kinds of things. I feel like support and just listening has been something that has inherently been inside me for a long time. And just like you're saying on how we're providing a space, I need to do that. You know, like I need to be able to provide you the space so that when you then go in and pick up that guest and pick up that person and go work with that person, whatever that you were dealing with has left behind, or we've worked through, or, you know, we've come to an area where that's not affecting your ability to do the work that you do. So, I mean, leadership is interesting. You're always learning, right? You're always learning from your mistakes. You're always learning from others. You're always learning from mentors. You're learning from things that you've experienced that you look back on and think, you know, that you could have done that a little differently. I feel like leadership is so much about just being able to be present.
I like that.
I was literally just thinking that too.
Especially because I look at you, I'm sorry, I look at you as like a bridge, right? Where you have to answer to corporate and also to be able to support your supporters of your clients.
And it's two sides that don't necessarily understand each other.
Exactly.
And everyone down below, they're watching you, you know, and they're learning from this. So, you know, that's where you start to see that kind of a ripple effect where, you know, down the line, you're going to see somebody that is literally picking up a guest and they're hearing and listening to everything that the guest is saying. And it makes it much more of a meaningful, you know, curated experience. You know, that makes a huge difference. The small details like that are huge.
Well, and I feel like the presence is important too, because you can't take everything with the same plan of action. Like that could have worked previously. That may have worked in other situations, but if you're not present to what is actually occurring and what you're dealing with, what your team is dealing with, what the business is dealing with, how are you going to create a plan or navigate that?
And I hear you, because I mean, we've worked with, you know, different companies who just want protocol. And they're going to do this step 1 to 8, 9, or 10 for every single guest. And, you know, when you're, and when we're in customer service, right? But we're in the healing industry, I like to call it, because, you know, like you're saying, like, you know, my client who comes in this month, maybe something is totally different next month. And so I'm not going to do the same facial, or we're not going to do the same protocol, right? But to do that, like on a scale at a resort, that's gotta be a little challenging. Right?
I mean, look at the past years. There was a lot of things. Our reopening was challenging. There were so many things. And I don't know, if you hold a grip onto things too hard of how, like, you've expected they should have been, or you expected to handle it, or all of that, then you can't. You're not gonna see what you need to see.
No, and I so appreciate that you brought up the presence, and it ties into what you're just saying, right? Expectations and what it should look like, and all of that. I like that, because really we're here for the client, right? But also we're here for ourselves too. Like this is, you know, like for me, this is very fulfilling, and I can see, like, when you talk about it, like you're so passionate, you know, about your work, about the people that you support, and, you know, and everything that it stands for. Right. With that being said, has there ever been a time where you're like, you know, I don't know if I can do this?
I mean, I'm sure there have been many. I feel like I was mentioning, for our reopening, we were closed for 2 years for renovations, and just like the ramping up from going from a small operation, because we actually had to move treatment rooms into hotel rooms.
Right.
So we went from having 16 treatment rooms to 7 in resort rooms, making that happen so that we can continue things on through our renovations and then getting back into a expansive spa because we now have 26 treatment rooms and ramp up for new staff and all of that and training. I feel like the timeline, there were so many plans for the timeline. So many plans on, at this point we will have this, at this point we can get into the building, we can train our team, and it was just like, go. Turn off the lights at one space, turn on the lights in another. And that was a challenge. Like, I think now we're about to be 2 years after our reopening, and only now does it feel like we're getting out of the weeds. And so that was like, to me, that was like, okay, what am I doing? I feel like I'm putting so much out there, putting so many hours, putting so much effort, putting so much energy, and just getting like beat and beat and beat. Waves keep crashing and all of that. And I think at that point, that was when I made a lot of choices to stop and be present with myself.
Yeah.
Because how am I going to continue if I keep feeling like can't breathe, you know, like can't get above the wave.
Yes.
And like, you know, what's going to support me to be able to be resilient in an experience like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were there and we had this conversation, right? I had this conversation with you where you were just literally, you felt beyond exhausted.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Defeat.
Down, right?
Yeah.
Defeated. So, you know, can you talk a little bit about like how you got yourself through that? Like, what do you have to do for you?
I spent more time going outside,
I remember you
staring at trees,
staring
at clouds, just like, you know, quiet, just release or not, just, you know, let me just be in a space that there's nothing asking for anything of me.
Yeah.
I'm actually the one asking for something of that space, you know, like give me life, give me energy, give me the will, you know? And I feel like outdoors are very powerful in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
And that, you know, I did therapy and other aspects of care and massage and different things like that. But for me, it was like I just needed the space to just not have anything asking anything of me.
Yeah.
And then I could go back to where everything was being asked. And I didn't have a lot of time to do that.
Right.
That was the other thing, you know, you have to make the time.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
true. That's an important point too, is we have to make the time for that.
Yeah.
Right. Because if we don't, we can't be doing this work for, you know, the people that need it.
Yeah.
You talked about presence, which I feel like, you know, in a corporate world, that's not really,
that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
absolutely
always forward thinking.
And time.
There's
right?
that time
available. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you wrangle up your team, right? And still encourage them to be, you know, their gifted, beautiful, empathic selves, but do it this way and get it done on time.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is also about there are so many things that are asking for your focus constantly, and you have to help the team understand what is the most important. Everything's important in that world, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, everything is important. You need to do this. Make sure you're with your guests. Make sure you're giving them what they need. But also on the back end, hit all these standards, hit all these things. Make sure that you're on time and you're hitting protocol, you know, like all of those things. But I feel like you have to take things into perspective and help people understand, okay, this is the first step. This is the first focus. Let's get through this and then we can move on to that. Or let's deal with this puzzle piece before we can deal with the other. A lot of times it's, you know, as a leader, you see the big picture. Other people don't. You're dealing with the big picture. And even when you're the one trying to explain how to get to somewhere, them not seeing that big picture, it's hard for them to understand what you're asking of them.
Right.
And why you're asking that.
Yeah. So part of that is, sharing and being open in some of it, just to help people understand what our goal is together as a team, or what we're after as a team. What is our, what is the why that we're continuing to focus on? I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like, if you don't have your mission, you don't have your why, people aren't going after the same thing, that's when it gets diluted, and all of those tasks at hand and things that you're trying to handle, and those deadlines are, what's the point?
Yeah.
If you don't continue to focus on that why, then what are we really after?
What is your why? Specifically for Mii Amo. Specifically for, because that's a very, that's a big question. It's an intimidating, I know, because, I asked that because, spot director, for me, I'd be like, right, but what is your why for accepting the position and then continuing, even through, something like COVID?
Yeah.
Right.
I think even beyond the team, it's the ripples that we have, the people that we touch, the people that we work with, the people who come and have these experiences. That my mom came to Mii Amo multiple times over, and even just her experiences alone, having a little bit more insight, knowing what my mom experienced. That I don't have that insight from most guests and most people that experience unless they decide to share.
Right.
And even that is a small piece of what they've experienced. Yeah. So I feel like it's those stories.
And your mom had a truly transformative experience.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone, if we can just be honest, from a non-believer to a, holy shit, I can't believe I felt that and saw that and experienced that. Right?
And she was dipping her toes in things that were scary for her. Like Watsu. I don't think I want to be held by someone in a pool and, in an intimate setting in my bathing suit. And I was like, just go for it. And I put her with someone that I knew that she would feel cared for in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was open to a lot of things like that. And just continued to explore. And so I feel like when you just kind of start dipping your toes in and you start exploring and you start finding things that make sense for you, and it opens up all kinds of things.
And for us to watch that, it's such a big win. You're like, oh my God, you're so excited for that person, right?
Yes.
When they're it literally is scary for them, how you were saying.
Yeah.
And then to watch somebody cross over that threshold, it's so fulfilling and it's so exciting. It's it's emotional, Yeah.
I think, if you don't mind me coming back to the conversation on leadership, I think one of the most difficult things is, as a leader, you're talking about, how, you're trying to basically orchestrate everything. But it's very rare nowadays also to find leaders that know what it's like to be in the trenches.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's such an important, key thing is for us to know as leaders, what it's like to be there, to be with the client. Right. And then how do I translate that to where I am now, trying to not just train people, but also lead by example. Right. Did you find that transition for yourself? Was that a big challenge for you as you made this, as you kind of made your way up?
I don't think it was that challenging because I was in the trenches.
Yeah.
Right. I started at the front desk at the resort side of things. I made my way over to the spa. I was one of the people who was working with the guests to come up with their plan, their itinerary, what was going to make sense for them. So I was learning as I went, and not having had that, I feel like I wouldn't understand the team.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's why it's such an important element, I feel, as a leadership in your position, right?
And also the guests, what it is that we're doing. I wouldn't have understood all of that. So I feel like that part of the trajectory was probably a little bit more easy because I experienced so much of it, which yeah, that would be interesting if I go somewhere else and I'm like, oh, I don't know all that. I'd have to be very curious to get to know it, to then be able to lead another place.
Do you feel like you get to express yourself artistically even in this position?
It's less frequent.
Okay.
When we're forward thinking, when we're thinking about things like our social media accounts, things like the new spa menu, things like new programming, all of those things that are in the future that we're working towards, I feel like that's that fun, creative space. Because you're creating what, hasn't been there yet. It's new, and what can we explore with each other? And what are the practitioners interested in offering, and what's kind of interesting out there that could help support our guests even more. I think that's the fun part, because then we get to all work together and talk about what makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's not very frequent. Operations take a lot more of the time than that. So.
The logistics.
But you also have to be in that space. You have to, that's another space that you have to make time for. Because otherwise you're not pushing things forward.
Things become bland a little bit.
Yeah.
I think she's right in regards to the creative space, that you have to
make time.
Almost, like that base of creativity has to be there. Or else it just becomes too black and white.
And it's interesting how a lot of people think like there's a juxtaposition in that. Like for you, like you're a PT and also a full-time musician, right? But like for you, like that's it's like your outlet is not the word that I want.
Well, I mean,
your way of expressing yourself, right? Just like how you were saying with the creative side of the business aspect.
But the creativity part has to come out though in our daily healing stuff too. Even just aside from the supplemental things, as you were saying, like my music, or even you guys in regards to dancing too, right? I mean, we're just fortunate that we're able to have that support from the outside coming in. But even within our own respective spaces of healing and practice, I mean, you got to get creative on the tools that you grew up with, right? So, whether it be a different technique that you learned, or a technique that you're wanting to evolve with, or even use a certain type of tech or a different type of service that you may have learned that you want to start evolving within your own practice, right? I think that's how we grow. That's how we thrive. That's how we start to push the needle a little bit on how can we create a little bit more resilience in ourselves. And others.
But I think it's true what you're saying of how, it shouldn't be separate. It's not a separate thing.
No. It shouldn't be
woven
into
everything. We don't necessarily look at it that way all the time. But to your point of creating a protocol, life like that can't exist within a protocol necessarily. Unless you make the space for it.
Especially when life naturally is ever changing, right? So a protocol is not going to work. Where do you see Mii Amo just as things are evolving, right? Or have you seen an evolution of Mii Amo? And where do you see it? What direction do you see it going into?
It's very interesting because people are choosing to experience things a little differently since the reopening. And it could also have to do with just monetary
whatever's available.
Right. What their funds are to be able to support these kinds of experiences. A lot of people would come in and spend the 3, 4, 7, or even more days with us. And they would just be housed with us the entire time. Not necessarily going out and hiking or the Grand Canyon or other opportunities out there. And would have 2 to 3 treatments a day and just be immersed in the situation. And I don't feel like people are able to necessarily do that right now. Just immerse themselves for that time. So a lot of it is just, okay, I'm able to come there, I'm exploring a little, I do a treatment, maybe each one a day or something like that. And I'm kind of understanding how this can support me. So in that way, it's more of how we're evolving to continue to support our guests, our clients, versus like an evolution of who we are, because we're always going to continue to be that space. Which, I mean, that's business too, right?
Yeah.
It's how do you support the community that's around you? How do you support the people that are continuing to look to you as their place of guidance, their place to seek knowledge? And that shifts and changes. I think that the treatments that we've continued to have on our menu have always been ones that are most tried and true, or ones that culturally in different cultures have really worked for hundreds of years or for a very long time. And they just continue to be those things that are really great for people to experience, and not necessarily like what is new out there and what is new tech, because people, it's really connection. It's the ways in which we make the connections.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part of it.
Well, and what I'm hearing is the intention
Yeah.
too. Like, you folks have a specific intention, not just choosing things because, oh, this resort is doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And shiny.
Instead of following trend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself evolving personally? Not, doesn't have to necessarily, I know that's also a loaded question. It doesn't necessarily have to be within Mii Amo, but
I think I'm at a big crossroads.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where that's headed.
Okay.
I feel like I'm at another, just like I told you about, New York and that change. I feel like it's another time in my life for a shift. I don't know if that's a place. I don't know if that's work. I don't know if that's a community. I feel like one of the things that I'm needing is more of that creation process and co-creation with others, and putting my mind with other minds and coming up with solutions and things like that. And so that's kind of what I'm seeking. And, putting it out there that that's what I want more of.
Yeah.
Which it could be in the same place that I'm at, and just flipping the switch on, making adjustments to where I am. Or it could be a physical move.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what that is.
Well, I love that you said that, because, it's no coincidence that you're saying that now. I mean, it's January 3rd. We're in a 9-year, right? So we just ended a whole, 15 to 20 year cycle, and we're starting on a whole new cycle, right? So it's no coincidence that you're saying that and you're feeling it in your now and wanting, craving that change, but also feeling it that it's happening. It probably is for you. Yeah. And we're also, looking forward to big changes with us too, even though I have no idea what it looks
we have no
idea how it's going to happen, but we're here for it.
Could you?
That's the beauty of it. Right? Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. We were talking, I was asking Kalei, I was like, okay, so do you want to talk about the destination or the journey? She's like, oh, it's always about the journey.
It's always, right?
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Yeah.
There's no way to know.
Oh, well, this has been a super, I love having these conversations.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we always have these questions that we ask at the end of the show, and I'll let them ask.
So, some of the things that we like to talk about, with our guests revolve around something that we call sanative connection, right? And for those of you that don't know what sanative connection is, go look it up in the dictionary. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing around. Sanative, connection is really a healing through connection, and we do a lot of healing here at Naʻau Pono. And, we're known as the premier, center of biohacking because of, the many approaches that we have towards wellness, towards aesthetics, respectfully, because of the education that we provide for others. But one of the things that are, widely missed that we notice, we can provide, the latest, things that come out with regard to supplementation and, technology. But one of the widely missed things is the understanding of how healing is through connection. Mm-hmm. And it can be connection, not just through people. It can be connection through an environment that you're in,
trees, the clouds,
through, through experiences. Like we've had many guests that have mentioned things such as that, right? Yeah. So, with that understanding of sanative connection, what would you say is just share with us actually what a sanative connection, what kind of sanative connection you've experienced. Mm-hmm. It can be a who, it can be a what, it can be a where, it can be anything you want.
I think it's more often not who, but a space. Mm-hmm. I think the who comes in when you're dealing with something very similar or experience, like you have a similar experience. Either you're experiencing that same thing with another person or a group of people, or they have experienced and you are currently, and there's a way to connect through that personal experience. But I feel like very frequently where I find power and connection is with the earth, with the elements, with what's surrounding us. Yeah. More frequently than people. I feel like I understand that more than people very frequently. It's a little bit more simplified. I feel we as people overcomplicate things very often.
For sure.
So yeah, that deeper connection for me really lies in like the elements.
Oh yeah.
And our surroundings.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, and we did especially when we were in Sedona, we did so many of those earthly connections with
absolutely.
You. It's beautiful.
Yeah, looking forward to more, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, we're long overdue.
Yeah.
But also the other question that we always talk about with our guests revolve around optimizing your now, which is the name of our podcast, right? Mm-hmm. How do you optimize your now?
Yeah. I feel like you and I were talking about this earlier. It's openness.
Yeah.
I feel like we were saying with presence, because it can be different with what you are personally needing each day, each moment. So I think the biggest thing is making sure that you're being true and that you're taking the time to listen what that means. Because there's things that can come along and can make you question what that is.
Yes.
And you have to refocus your mind to understand, okay, is that outside noise? Is this coming from within? Why is that making me question what's going on? Because ultimately you hold within yourself answers. Yeah. You hold within yourself understanding. Yeah. So it's like quiet the outside. And
Oh, I love that answer.
I love that too. Yeah. That was the best way to end this conversation.
I mean, usually we have people that talk about like, oh, I do, hyperbaric chamber session, or, a cold plunge. No.
To diss on them.
And we're not, my morning coffee, but like, but this is super, super important, and we totally connect with this, right? Finding the resources that we literally have within ourselves. Like we don't give ourselves enough credit, of the resources that we naturally have within ourselves. And so I love that. Optimizing your now comes from your now.
Yep.
I love that. Well, Kalei, thank you so much for flying all the way to come be with us.
I know it was really hard. to go from one beautiful place to another.
But this was such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best in however you evolve, personally, mentally, spiritually, business. But thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Mahalo for joining us, folks, and till the next Optimize Your Naʻau podcast.
Aloha.
Aloha.